Hello. Hey, how are you? I know it is so weird. It has been such a while since we have talked, and clearly there's a new experience. The podcast title is now called Perfect Periods. It's both audio and video. Who is she? And somebody's looking a little extra cute. Okay, that's me. So, what is up, friends? And welcome back to another episode. In case you are new here, or perhaps you've been here for a while, but you need me to reintroduce myself, my name is Berrion Berry, but literally everyone calls me Berry. I am a fertility awareness educator and integrative health practitioner that is also the creator of Optimize Your Flo, which is an online education platform designed to really bridge the knowledge gap between patients and providers when it comes to women's health and fertility. So, today's episode is really going to be that introductory episode. I want to share a little bit about my story. I want to share with you why we're calling this podcast Perfect Periods. And then, of course, what you can expect over the next, I don't know, maybe forever. I don't know. But before we do that, let me share a few things. First, hit subscribe in case you love sugar, spice, and all things organic and nice. Okay. Also, you might want to go ahead and get yourself a beverage because today's episode is definitely one where I'm just more so sharing my heart and my story. I don't really do that very often, but I feel like this is a nice way to get to know each other. And then also, if you are not connected with me over on TikTok or Instagram at Berrion Berry, you might want to do that. And if you go ahead and share the podcast episode or whatever, I might slide into the DMs with some free recipes, and by might, I will. So make sure you share the podcast with your besties, leave a rating and review. And with that being said, let's get into perfect periods. So, as I shared with you before, my name is Berry. And honestly, I never in a million years expected to be doing what it is that I'm doing. But here we are. Now, in case you have not been here for a while, there's a lot going on. Always, 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 always. But the last year of my life has been the most transformative year of my life. And I think that the best way to start things is to tell you what season of life I'm currently in. So that's how we're going to kick off like most interviews with other people is like, what period of life are you in is the key question. And the period that I am in is a period of recalibration and realignment. Over the last year of my life, you know, I went from being like a single woman focused on her to now being a girlfriend and really supporting my partner as he parents because he's got two little ones. So it's just been definitely like this different thing to navigate. And because everything kind of all happened at once, there was no like slow build. There was just like a lot of like me just needing to like sink or swim. You're either going to sink or swim. I'm in the season of like recalibration and realignment, recalibrating with like who I am and what it is I value, and alignment in my purpose and my calling. So that is the season I'm in. But if you were to say, Barry, how did you get started in this space? I would say kind of by fluke. Okay. So I want to start with 2019, which might sound a little wild, but I remember it's January of 2019. I was interviewing someone for my podcast, Miss Hannah Bailey. Shout out to Hannah. If you're still doing all the things you were doing back in 2019, love that for you. But if you're doing better, love that for you too. Anyway, so I was interviewing Hannah for my podcast, and Hannah said, well, Barry, periods aren't supposed to be painful. And I was like, okay, Hannah, like whatever. And she's like, no, no, no. My dad's a doctor. He thinks it's so weird that we normalize period pain. And I was like, hold on, you're not going to speed past this. Like, you didn't just say that. An MD said periods aren't supposed to be painful. She's like, yeah. And I was like, okay, I'm going to look into this. And I remember right after going on my Instagram stories and like telling people about it. And literally everyone was like, no, this isn't true. And I knew in that moment, I was going to be dedicating all of my work to the period and menstrual health space. Little did I know it was going to turn into what it is, the way that it is, but here we are. So, like maybe a day or so later, I interviewed someone else for my podcast, and she told me to read the book Woman Code by Elisa Vitti. So, naturally, I've read it. And at this time in my life, I was a certified personal trainer, certified functional nutritionist, but I also had a corporate job. I read this book and was like, I don't believe it. Like, you cute or whatever, but I don't believe it. And that's all she wrote. Okay, y'all. Like, the moment I read that book and actually implemented what was being talked about in the book, my health completely changed and my relationship with my period completely changed. Now, for background, I had always hated my period. I got my first period when I was like 12, and I just felt like it was the biggest inconvenience. I hated the fact that I had a heavy flow. I hated the fact that I literally would cramp so bad that I would be leaving in the middle of like second or third hour when I was in high school. I hated the fact that my period would go missing from time to time because honestly, I was a high level athlete and I was overtraining and undernourished, but didn't know because that was quote unquote normal. And it's so common, but that doesn't mean it's normal, right? But there were all these different things. And y'all, add insult to injury, baby girl got on hormonal birth control on her way into college to help manage the period pain. And that affected how I felt in my body, one, two, how I performed on the track because I was a collegiate athlete for all of a year, but I still did it. And in addition to that, like I just didn't know who I was. I think everybody kind of goes through that phase when they're in college or university, but like this was like straight up, I felt out of my mind, out of my body. Like I was like overly emotional and I had no idea why. So, in 2019, when I'm thinking about like transforming my period because of Miss Hannah Bailey, I'm thinking about like younger Berry, whose period was like a hot mess. I was like, you mean to tell me like I don't have to go around hating my period and my body because of this? Like, you mean to tell me there is power in this period? Okay, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. And so March of 2019 was the first pain-free period I had ever had. And I've been carrying this little light pink torch ever since about periods being normal and pain not. Like periods are normal, pain shouldn't be. Period, dot, end of story. Now, again, as I said, in 2019, I was a certified functional nutritionist and personal trainer. Well, I knew that I didn't want to stay in corporate. I knew that wasn't my calling. There's a lot of things that might be my calling. Corporate America was not it at that time. Maybe later in life, but right now, just don't see it. So, anyways, I remember it was December of 2019. I'd gone to this really great workshop held with my friend Kaylia and her business coach, Karina. And I remember putting on my vision board something about periods and like really wanting to go full time teaching people how to live aligned with their menstrual cycle. So January of 2020 hits, and I decided that I wanted to get certified as an integrative health practitioner, as well as a fertility awareness educator. Because if anything, I was like, maybe I will have like this brick and mortar practice where people can come to me for their lab testing and like we can solve period problems and fertility problems all together. Well, I set that in, I had that in my head for January, and I set the intention to leave my full-time corporate job by August of 2020. I had no clue how I was going to do it, didn't know what I was going to do, frankly, but I was just like, we out here. Uh, like I'm young, I don't really have any responsibilities besides me, myself, my, and I like gotta do it. Okay. March of 2020 hits, and I got let go from my corporate job. Now, the initial reaction was, this is awful. The like 8 minute later reaction was, okay, God, I see you. You're just gonna push me into that purpose, huh? Okay. I was a little shocked. I'm not gonna lie. But that was the best thing that ever happened to me. 2020 was hands down probably one of the best years of my life because of being pushed quite literally into my purpose. I remember March of 2020, I'd lost that corporate job, thought like I'm a failure at life. I went to corporate America. I went to college. I went to corporate America. I wasn't making the money I thought I was going to be making. I was feeling like a failure because I got let go. That wasn't even in my control. Like they were like, you're non-essential. Like, and I'm not essential to people. Like, oh my God, I'm replaceable. But God had different things in in the works that I didn't know about. April of 2020, I did my first virtual summit where I shared the practice of living in sync with your menstrual bleed, with your menstrual cycle. And that was the moment where all of the things I had been like casually sharing on my Instagram, casually sharing with like, workshops that I was teaching because I used to teach in person, or like, that was the moment where like my online client work became like a very like in my face work because I was doing online client work like on the side. It was a side hustle. It wasn't like the full-time gig, right? So like I was just like, oh, I'm getting this person to, a really great period, or helping this girl with her PCOS, or helping this woman with her endometriosis, or the fibroid, all of those things. But this socially distant summit that my friend Carson Murray hosted really opened my eyes to seeing how many people wanted to live in sync with their biology but didn't know how. So that was kind of the confirmation that I needed. But then May of 2020 happened, June of 2020 happened. And, you know, I will say this. I chose in June of 2020 to really just speak my personal story and my truth when it came to just being a woman of color in the US and like things I had noticed. But I didn't do it from this lens of like, I'm blaming everybody and I hate everyone. I did it from the lens of what I believe is probably the best lens, a lens of respect, integrity, honesty, and just love. You lead with love, respect, and compassion in my community. And so, I was like, okay, let me take my like university degrees and utilize them to help people understand what's going on. Let me take like my understanding and like really help somebody who feels completely disempowered or blindsided come through. So I remember, doing Instagram lives every single day the first week of June, just to help people understand like, microaggressions or cultural appropriation. And again, from the lens of this is the problem that people are having and these are solutions. Cause like I have never been somebody like, let me just talk about my problem and not provide you a solution. No, we're gonna talk about it. We're gonna talk about it and then we're gonna do something about it. Period. That's how I felt, and it's still how I feel. So that was June of 2020, like that first week. Ever since then, my account was like exploding. And in full transparency, I just knew by July of 2020, everybody was going to go away. I really was like, all the people who just followed me, like, I went from having like 500 Instagram followers to having like 1,000 to having like 2,000, 5,000. And I was like, whoa, whoa, wait a minute, wait a minute, wait a minute. We don't talk about like these lived experiences very often. We talk about your period. And people are like, what? And everyone just stayed. And August of 2020, I launched the Flow Academy, which was like my first baby where we had Transition Your Flow, which was a masterclass style program talking about how to transition off of hormonal birth control. We had Balance Your Flow, which was all about like really helping you balance, which you guys know how I feel about that. If you don't know how I feel about like a statement, balancing your hormones or hormone balancing right now, that means you're not following me on Instagram or TikTok. So stop what you're doing. Go hit the follow at Berrion Berry. You're welcome. But I also had a program called Nourish Your Flow, which was designed to teach you how to eat in sync with your cycle. And then there was Optimize Your Flow, which is a productivity program. And well, that's the only program that's still around is Optimize Your Flow. And that's because it's not a program, it's the name of the blog and the education platform. But that was like August of 2020. Now, November of 2020, I went through a really tough breakup, and I moved back home from Florida to Michigan. And I spent all of 2021 really just like mastering my craft on a deeper level and creating something new and innovative as it relates to living in sync with your cycle. It was the first time I just allowed myself to take up space in a different way. But then, you know, as with all things, you just grow, you learn, you develop, and you keep moving. Then 2022, I did some really great things at the top of 2022. Then in May of 2022, I met my now boyfriend, who is absolutely phenomenal. But at the time him and I had started dating, I noticed changes in what I wanted to do with my career and the way that I wanted to do it. I didn't really want to do the online coaching thing anymore. And I wasn't really like loving my courses anymore. Not because they were bad. And, I just really didn't know what I wanted to do. So I took some time off from like doing like a lot of the work that I was used to doing to really just kind of sit with myself. And it's so crazy because at the same time I'm sitting with myself, he was going through a lot in his personal life and business, which if he ever comes on the podcast, I'll let him tell you. But there was just so much in 2022 that came at me unexpectedly, and then us as a couple unexpectedly. And now here we are at the top of 2023, and I can finally feel like the dust is settling. um, I can kind of get out of fight or flight and really just share and pour into people again. So that is how I got to where I am. By no means did I think I was going to be the person teaching you how to align with your cycle. By no means did I think I would end up talking to you about the brain changing throughout your menstrual cycle. By no means did I ever see myself being a podcaster or a female founder. I mean, I went to school for political science, Arabic, and German. Like, that is what I went to college for. Okay. And I really, really thought that I was going to be like a diplomat and go work in women's health and women's rights. But like, God clearly had other plans for me. And baby, I ain't mad at it. Oh, okay. So I don't think y'all are mad either, but that's a little bit about me, and like kind of the background, right, of how I got into this space. And it's always interesting because I think often we go through these seasons of our lives trying to figure out where we want to be, but other times we just need to just allow where we need to be to take us where we got to go. And so I think that's why I wanted to create this podcast and call it perfect periods, to help you perfect different periods of your life and really give you tools, like good tools to help you navigate these different seasons with so much grace and so much ease. But I also want to teach you how to perfect your menstrual bleed. Okay. I want you having a flawless flow. So that is kind of perfect periods. That is, my story with how I got started in this space. And the reason I continue to really do what I do is just seeing the light bulb moment for all of you, but also my passion for women's health and women's rights. A few things you should probably know about me. I am a very straight talker. I do try to be politically correct, but it is definitely not my strong suit. So take what you need, leave what you don't. I have very strong opinions and I'm pretty unshaking in them. Every now and again, you might hear a strong opinion here on the podcast. Um, every now and again, you might just hear me say something you don't like. And frankly, protect your peace. That's how I feel about that. If you don't like what I have to say, that's totally fine. Just do what you need to do for you the way you need to do it. You don't have to tell me about it. You need to like unsubscribe or mute. Go ahead, do it, do it, do it. I'm not mad at you. Okay. Another thing I would love to share with you all, it's kind of like what I hope you guys gain from each episode. So, from each episode, I hope you either learn a fact that you didn't know before, get some food tips because y'all know we trying to nourish our bodies for real, and have a lot of fun. I believe that, it is so important for us to enjoy the things that we are consuming, whether it be our physical like diet, right? Or like a more metaphorical diet, right? A more um abstract diet, when it comes to the content. I also really, really hope that you enjoy the conversations we have on the podcast. I have some phenomenal interviews lined up. featuring incredible female founders and creators. And yeah, that's it. Let me know what you want us to talk about here on Perfect Periods. Like, comment down below something you want to know more about in any aspect. And as always, I'm sending you big love and flowy vibes, and I'll talk to you soon, friend. Ciao.